In this video, I'm going to explain why your aim isn't improving and how to start improving again. In order to improve, you have to focus on what you're doing and challenge yourself. If you fail to do either of these, you won't improve as quickly as you can. Focusing on what you're doing is very important. You have to be consciously aiming at the target, whether it be tracking it, flicking to it, whatever. I'm not a scientist, so I can't explain the neurology well, but basically when you are focused, your brain is putting more effort into learning the skill you're practicing. Challenging yourself works in a very similar way. If you're running a very easy scenario, no matter how focused you are, you won't get much out of it. However, you can challenge yourself in different ways. If you play something like Tile Frenzy with large targets you have to click, you can be challenged by the speed you have to move your crosshair at, and just to learn to understand what your crosshair is doing at that kind of speed. Now, it is possible to challenge yourself too much. For example, if you're running a scenario like close fast strafes, you might not be able to understand how you should move your crosshair if you're like voltaic bronze or something. If you challenge yourself too much, you won't be able to focus on what you're actually doing, and you'll just sit there getting nothing out of the scenario. A good way to tell if the scenario is too hard is just to play it and see if you feel like you're at least able to focus on both your crosshair and the target and know how to move your crosshair to be on the target. If you find yourself in like a spray and pray mentality, you should just stop that scenario, you'll get nothing out of it. You can also challenge yourself and increase your focus with sensitivity. A high sense will force you to use your fingers and wrist better. Also, you can run a high sense and avoid using these to develop precise shoulder and elbow control. A low sense will emphasize shoulder and elbow motion, and a new sense can force you to focus. When aiming, you should be using your entire arm, including your wrist and fingers, so even if you play in a low sense in most games or a high sense in most games, it still makes sense to focus on your less used joints because you'll use them some of the time and need them to be good when you are using them. Changing your sense will also force you to focus a lot more. If you are familiar with a sense, you can go autopilot way more easily. This adds to the benefits of the challenge of that sense. But if you're on a sense for like 3 minutes, you'll get used to it pretty fast. This is why a lot of people find themselves playing with a sense randomizer. It will be constantly changing your sensitivity so that you're not only forced to use different parts of your arm, but also constantly focused on putting your crosshair on the target as your sense steadily changes. A lot of people say a sense randomizer is only for plateaus or not great for new players, and I disagree with both of these. From my experience, I can say there isn't really a skill minimum for sense randomization. You can do it at any point. It will make scenarios harder, so you may not be able to do as many scenarios as you would be able to do without it, but you can definitely use a sense randomizer regardless of your skills. I'd also say you don't really need to wait for a plateau to use a sense randomizer. The reason it got the reputation of something for plateaus is because when you're doing something that's working, you don't really need to think about changing it, you just keep going. Once you're stopped improving and you want to look for a solution, you try new things like a sense randomizer. However, if you're improving and want to improve faster, there's nothing stopping you from getting a sense randomizer right now. I've listed the benefits above, it will help you. Another important thing for improvement is to be in good health. Sleep well, eat well, do some exercise. Some people have even started meditating after aim training to help solidify practice. Also try changing things. If you're dedicated to the voltaic gold fundamentals and can't get a lot of your plat scores, try a different routine. Also keep in mind that if you change your sense or play a scenario differently, the same routine can feel extremely different. Training more can help a ton, but if you lose focus, you're wasting your time. If you feel pain, you're risking carpal tunnels or an RSI. Don't lose focus, don't injure yourself, but within those restrictions, train as much as you want. Also, a lot of people just haven't trained long enough. 8 days is 8 days, it's not a plateau. 2 months is not unheard of, it's common. Whatever the time is, keep trying. You're not going to improve as fast as you were when you were new. Just keep going. I have a lot more tips on how to improve your aim faster, and I'll put them in more videos in the future. Subscribe so you don't miss them.